All right, Jack Layton got into federal politics in 2003. That's when he was elected the leader of the NDP.
Is this a party on the move? Absolutely.
And while he was new to Ottawa and the rest of the country, he was not a political rookie. In fact, politics is in his blood. His great-great-uncle was a father of Confederation, his grandfather a provincial cabinet minister in Quebec, and his dad was a Tory minister under, and this might surprise you, Brian Mulroney. All right, Layton grew up outside Montreal. He was the president of the student council in high school. In university, Layton became a young liberal. But in 1971, he was influenced by Tommy Douglas's opposition to the War Measures Act.
And when you give these kind of powers to local authorities, you no longer know what use or abuse they're going to make of those powers.
Layton decided time to switch to the NDP. Eventually, he moved to Toronto, where he became a professor, then got into politics as a city councillor, and for nearly 20 years, he was the voice on the left of local Toronto politics. He worked in the fight against AIDS, opposed Toronto's bid for the '96 Olympics, and helped create the White Ribbon campaign to stop violence against women.
We'd like to remind people that the caring and nurturing that men can do is the kind of role that we want to emphasize.
He even ran for mayor of Toronto, but lost. As a leader of the NDP in Ottawa, he's had 2 federal elections now, played a big role in the House of Commons.
What we have come here to do is to deliver a budget that actually produces results for Canadians. That's a true test of confidence.
The NDP propped up a minority Liberal government in exchange for $4.5 billion in social spending, but that was all for nothing. When the Conservatives took power, they canceled many of the programs. Now, as for the New Democrats, they won 10 new seats in the last election, but Layton wants more. He wants to be Prime Minister. The leader of the federal NDP, Mr. Jack Layton. Welcome to the show. Could you ever see a time where you would put out a rap record? Would you ever make a hip-hop album?
Maybe in another life.
Yeah, not in this one.
But that's religion. We won't go into that.
You campaigned hard. You're campaigning hard now to be the Prime Minister. That's it. You're going out for this job. Why the decision to campaign this way, this tactic?
Well, because I think we need a whole new direction in the country. You know, I've watched governments come and go over the years, and what I see is that the concerns that people are grappling with at their kitchen table, and it was sitting at a kitchen table with a family that put this word and this concept and image in my mind.
Were you invited, or did you just walk in?
Yeah, no, well, being a counselor, you knock on doors and you get invited in. Canadians are like that, you know, come and have a cup of tea. Or whatever, and so and they're grappling with all these issues. How are we gonna look after our grandmother? She needs home care. How are we going to cover the cost of the medications that we need? Somebody's done well in high school, but we can't afford to send them to college. What about my job? Like, these are the things that we ought to be talking about every day in the House of Commons, and our party is going to put those front and center and deliver with some step-by-step solutions.
Can we have a George and Jack conversation? But let me ask you a question straight up, okay? Do you think you're going to be I get what you're saying, but if you look at all the polling and look at the NDP have never had that office, you don't think you're going to win in this particular election to be the Prime Minister because you know the way the numbers are rolling out. So I wonder why put yourself in that position.
I'm like the guy who, you know, you've got one of those Olympic athletes who's the coach says, hey, everybody says you're going to come 9th or 12th, and you say, you know something, we're going to do better than that. We're going to actually go out there and try and win, because we really believe that what we're offering is the right way to go for the country. And we got a great team, and I think we're going to win. I think Canadians are going to say, and they're saying increasingly at the gatherings and rallies that we're having, we don't want to go back to same old. We don't want Stephen Harper. He's the wrong direction for the country. We've got some concerns about the other party that's been there, propping them up and so on and so forth. Let's try something new. We're not going to let people tell us time and time again, you can't do that. It's not possible. I finish every speech by saying, don't let them tell you it can't be done. It's a can-do kind of approach. And if you don't believe in it, then don't come forward and offer it.
On a very practical level, where do you realistically expect the Democrats to pick up seats in this election?
All over the country. We've got some fabulous candidates running in,
But you look at
from Newfoundland and Labrador. Jack Harris, former NDP leader there, up to Nunavut. We have a very popular CBC broadcaster running for us there in Inuit. I could go across the country. We've got Tom King from Dead Dog Cafe in Guelph.
But where do you expect to win them, though? Because you don't expect to win a Democrat seat in Alberta. You're not going to win one there. And if you do win one there...
I'm not a betting man.
Right. But I owe $20. Now, listen, I'm all about democracy. $20 says you're not winning a seat in Alberta.
A cold beer.
$20.
A cold beer.
I'll drink it, O'Doul.
All right. A cold beer. We have our former NDP leader running for us in Edmonton East and a fabulous environmental lawyer who just about won last time in Edmonton Strathcona.
You keep talking like this and people are going to think you smoked pot. Because... this is not going to happen. Anyway, okay. So you expect that, but is there a riding, like, you know, Stephen Harper expects to make his majority by win up to make a lot of ground in Quebec. He thinks he can make ground there. Stéphane Dion needs to hold on to Toronto. Elizabeth May probably out west. For you, where, like, is there a place you expect this is where we have a shot? Edmonton East? Do you think that's your shot?
Oh, yeah. All across the country. Kamloops. We've got real possibilities in Toronto. Marilyn Shirley's running in Beaches, and she's such a great environmentalist. People love her. Right across the country, we've got great candidates. People told us we could never win in Quebec. That was 1 year ago, practically to the day. And now we have a member of parliament. Why is that? Because people want change and they want something positive, forward-looking. They don't want to go back to the things they've seen and had for years, especially, if I may say so, a $50 billion corporate tax cut for banks and oil companies. That's not the right thing to do right now.
But the corporate tax cut isn't just for banks and oil companies. I mean, you're proposing to raise the corporate tax again, and by doing that, there's a lot of smaller corporations that are going to get hurt, and a lot of people feel that corporations are the one that keep jobs and keep the economy going, and in this particular time, that's not the way to go. A lot of economists say that's not the way to go by higher corporate taxes.
Bank economists, sorry.
No, it's economists.
But let me just be clear on what we're saying. We want to freeze the corporate tax rate for big corporations where it was in their last tax return. So this is not anything dramatic. And we've seen taxes come down for corporations under Paul Martin and the others for the last several years. We're now below the Americans. So we're in a very good competitive position. But they've been throwing people out of work, 400,000 good jobs lost. The approach isn't working. I say, let's help the businesses who are going to create jobs here, especially the ones in the new economy, the new energy economy. We took people to a solar photovoltaic manufacturing plant where we could put solar energy on the roofs of tens of thousands of houses. Let's help that company get up and going and deliver on the environment and the job side at the same time.
Yeah, but is that enough to bring those jobs back? A lot of people would think that a politician can't really create jobs. All they can do is create conditions where a company can create jobs.
Yes.
And you think that by putting a corporation in a position where they're losing money on their own end, that's going to create those conditions?
Oh, companies losing money aren't getting any of the tax breaks that Stephen Harper's offering, because that's only for the big profitable companies. Banks and oil companies consume a huge proportion of that. And they're not the ones creating the jobs right now. Certainly Exxon doesn't need our help to create jobs in the tar sands. No, well, that's why we're saying, come on, let's slow things down and get a handle on this.
Why is it then that the New Democrats have had a tough time being perceived as the party that can handle an economy, certainly in tough economic times? Because people want to be in a better economy, but they never naturally think that the NDP are the party for that. Why is that?
Well, some people who, for example, bank economists and others in the boardroom tables, they don't like the idea that we might have a more balanced approach. They've got it pretty good. They send their lobbyists up to Ottawa, they get what they want time and time again. But who's standing up for you or your friends when somebody gouges you on your cell phone or gouges you on your, at the gas pump or doesn't provide funding with public transit? I think that we need a party that says, we're there to cover your back, to make sure that your issues are front and center on the cabinet table. The boardrooms have their own ways of being successful. And here's the offer I'm making to Canadians. You've had the same old for a long, long time. Are you happy with it? Do you feel this is the right direction on the war, on the environment, on where you stand in the economy and your future? If you don't, take a look at the New Democrats. We're opening our doors to people from all different parties who have a progressive point of view. Send a prime minister that you can trust to deliver for you.
Well, that's the thing. You know, Stephen Harper's made a lot of ground by appealing to people who for a long time didn't feel like they fit under the Conservative tent. And they've been able to bring in people who are a little bit more centrist, and that's why Stephen Harper certainly grows in the polls. I wonder, for your party, have you been able, do you think that you're growing the party beyond the traditional? I mean, even Stéphane Dion called you out the other day saying that it's the same old school, out-of-date socialism that you're preaching. And have you been able to bring in people who would normally vote for the Conservative Party?
When they start calling you names, you know you're making a difference.
That sounds like something a mom would tell us when you're getting called names.
But look, we've got one of the founders of the Green Party of Quebec running for us, Danielle Breton in Quebec. Fabulous spokesperson on Kyoto for Quebec people. We've got the former chair of the Liberal Women's Caucus, Paul Martin's government, running for us in Gatineau. Why? Because it's a tent that's big and it's got some ideals and it's got some practical suggestions for how we can move forward. And so the team is fabulous, the ideas are strong, and most important, we're saying to people, we're going to put you first.
Why did you oppose Elizabeth May in the debate?
Well, I felt that we should go in with the same rules as last time, but it became very clear that we were going to end up debating the debate and who should be in the debate more than the issues.
Well, I don't think it was a debate about the debate. I thought that was one of the rare moments where the people went, this is democracy, and the Green Party gets public money. And when Stephen Harper and Jack Layton said, we don't want them in there, it looked like you guys were scared of the Green Party as opposed to wanting to have, a real democratic discussion.
Well, look, it's going to happen. I'm glad it's fine she's going to be there. I got to tell you, I'm primarily there to debate Stephen Harper because I think he's the wrong Prime Minister for Canada right now, and I want his job because I think we can take the country in a direction that will help a lot more people.
Would you settle for Stéphane Dion's job?
So, when you interview somebody in a race, do you say, so how about second?
You know what, though? Sometimes you look at the reality. No, I look at the reality.
I didn't get into politics to be in opposition. I got into it to be involved because I share the hopeful sentiment of Tommy Douglas, and it was wonderful to see him on there, because you know what he always said? Courage, my friends, it's never too late to make a better world. And I believe that, and I believe that can be done with New Democrats, not only just in the House of Commons, doing what we've done, but actually grabbing a hold of the wheel and turning the country towards where it needs to go.
And it's a conversation I'd have with all the leaders who come on here. If you are not the Prime Minister or you are not the leader of the official opposition after this election, will you be the leader of the NDP?
Well, that's always up to our party to decide. We have a convention.
Do you want to stay that way?
I'm enjoying the job. And every 2 years we have a convention, and they get to tell me whether they're enjoying me in the job as much as I'm enjoying the job.
Good to see you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Okay,
Jack Layton, everybody, leader of the federal New Democrats. All right, coming up on the show tonight, Oscar-nominated actor Greg Kinnear, plus a little bit of history in the making. In social spending, but that was all for nothing. When the Conservatives took power, they canceled many of the programs. Right now, as for the New Democrats, they won 10 new seats in the last election, but Layton wants more. He wants to be Prime Minister. The leader of the federal NDP, Mr. Jack Layton. Welcome to the show. Could you ever foresee a time where you...
We'd like to remind people that the caring and nurturing that men can do is the kind of role that we want to emphasize.
He even ran for mayor of Toronto, but lost. As a leader of the NDP in Ottawa, he's had 2 federal elections now, played a big role in the House of Commons.
What we have come here to do is to deliver a budget that actually produces results for Canadians. That's a true test of confidence.
The NDP propped up a minority Liberal government in exchange for $4.5 billion. All right, Jack Layton got into federal politics in 2003. That's when he was elected the leader of the NDP.
Is this a party on the move? Absolutely.
And while he was new to Ottawa and the rest of the country, he was not a political rookie. In fact, politics is in his blood. His great-great-uncle was a father of Confederation, his grandfather a provincial cabinet minister in Quebec, and his dad was a Tory minister under, and this might surprise you, Brian Mulroney. All right, Layton grew up outside Montreal. He was the president of the student council in high school. In university, Layton became a young liberal. But in 1971, he was influenced by Tommy Douglas's opposition to the War Measures Act.
And when you give these kind of powers to local authorities, you no longer know what use or abuse they're going to make of those powers.
Layton decided time to switch to the NDP. Eventually, he moved to Toronto, where he became a professor, then got into politics as a city councillor, and for nearly 20 years, he was the voice on the left of local Toronto politics. He worked in the fight against AIDS, opposed Toronto's bid for the '96 Olympics, and helped create the White Ribbon Campaign to stop violence against women.